Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nivasesa Sundivali Paskachade Satarne. So what is it that Srila Prabhupada talked about a lot? Can you see the screen like that without turning your neck all over to the side? What is it that you... Hey, hello. Thank you. What is it that Srila Prabhupada talked about a lot, wrote about a lot, said that he wanted, but nobody seems to know what it is or how to do it? What is that? Everybody. There you go. All right, would you like to learn something about what it actually is? All right, great. This is a little complicated to do. We're going to just do a summary. Do we have any Career Dharma books left? Nope. Looks like we sold out of the book. We have other books here, but not that one. So I'm sorry that we've sold out. This is my last evening here. But they are available online. They're available from Golden Age Media in Delhi and also from Amazon in print and ebook and audiobook, which was an Amazon bestseller. And hopefully you're going to get a printout, which should make things a little easier for you to remember. All right. So we're going to learn how to recognize our nature and use it in Krishna's service. If you would like to get on our mailing list, you can go to careerdharma.net. We also have an online course there. And we have listing of people who are qualified to do coaching also. So I'd like you to imagine, you want to capture that again? I'll go back. You got it? I'd like you to imagine that your daily life has come to include everything that you've ever wanted, that you love the work you're doing, what you're producing, and how you're making a meaningful contribution, that your work is bringing you the kind of prosperity that really enriches you and that you joyfully share with others. Would that be nice? Yes? Now, suppose everyone in the world had that. So it's a big book, and I'm going to be going through it in about an hour. So we are going to go through it fairly quickly. We're going to look at identifying our ideal career field and prosperity type, which is what most people are primarily interested in. Then we're going to go beyond that to learning the secrets of making our work deeply meaningful. Beyond that, to progress toward dharmic mastery, and beyond that, the whole system for peace and prosperity. So we're going to look at 9 principles of career dharma, and I'm wondering if you could read these with me. Can we read these together? 1, connecting our nature with our livelihood. 2, advancing through life while nourishing our nature. 3, extending our prosperity to others. 4, ethical and meaningful work of value. 5, delight in cherishing our prosperity and field of work. 6, having celebrations of the sacred in our life and work. 7, above the shades of ego. 8, maintaining societal balance, cooperation between the fields and competition within the fields. 9, all-inclusive sustainable prosperity. And it's so cool when you put them all together, at least in English, they spell career dharma. Woohoo! So first we're going to look at identifying our prosperity type and career field. And here we have the first principle, connecting our nature with our livelihood. This principle means that the way that I maintain myself, the way that I earn my money, the way I pay my bills, should connect with who I am. It should connect with my nature. Srila Prabhupada says that we are all like a cell in the universal body of God. So just like in our own body, we have heart muscle cells and lung cells, correct? Right? Brain cells and bone cells. And in order for those to serve the body, they have to be in the right place. Also for them to be happy, the little cells, their souls, you know. For them to be happy, they have to be in the right place. If you're a heart muscle cell, as soon as you're in the lungs, you're not going to help the body, and you're not going to be happy. Now, a lot of times when people think about success in work, they think of it just about money, right? If you say, oh, is he successful in his work? You mean, does he make a lot of money? But I'd like to ask, how many of you know, you've heard about, you've read about, you've met someone, they don't have a lot of money, but they're happy, their life is rich. How many of you know at least one person like this? Okay. How many of you know at least one person who has a lot of money, but they're not happy, they have a poor life? If you don't know, some of you don't know anybody. If you don't know of any person like this, you can look at any news headline any day, and you'll find somebody who has a lot of money, but an impoverished life. So the Vedas teach us that there's actually 6 different ways to feel rich. And no matter how much money we have, if we don't have the kind of richness that fulfills us, we're not going to be happy. So I sometimes teach a 2-hour class just about this. So we're going to go through this a little bit quickly, but I'd like you each, when we're talking about this, so I'd like you to think about in your work or some volunteer service, when you had Aishvarya. Aishvarya comes from the word Ishwara. And what does Ishwara mean? Anybody? What does Ishwara mean? Controller. To be a controller. So this is when you have some positional leadership. You have a title. You're a vice president, you're a temple commander, you're a foreman, you're a project leader, you're controlling money, you're controlling stuff. This doesn't mean money and luxury for yourself. This means what you're using to be a controller. Right? Now, some of us really enjoy this. Some of us really enjoy managing projects, managing people, making sure that people in the right place and things get done, and kind of keeping all the different pieces of it together, right? Some of us are like, whoa, that makes me feel satisfied, that enriches me. And others of us really don't like this, right? I know someone who was very happy in her job until they gave her a leadership position. Then she started having trouble sleeping and stomach aches. And other people, they can do it or not. So I'd like you to think for a minute of when you've had Aishvarya in your work. How did you feel when you had it? And how did you feel when you didn't have it? Now, what will happen with each of these, because Krishna says our nature cannot be repressed. So if there's something that's really important to our nature and we don't have it, then we'll try to get it anyway. So one time when I was giving a class, one woman walks in, maybe she was in her 40s or 50s, and she started telling everybody where to sit and what to do. And I actually had to stop my class. And finally I said, do you have any managerial position? And she said, no. And I said, would you please get one? So if Aishvarya is very important to you, when you haven't had it in your work, you'll find you end up managing things anyway. Let's look at the next one, which is Gyan. Gyan means knowledge. So if you can think about work that forces you to keep learning, some kind of jobs, like let's say you're a medical doctor, if you don't keep learning, you can't do your job. And some of us love jobs where learning and research is an integral part of the work. We're like, that's the kind of work I like to do. That's what enriches me. And other people really don't like that. They feel, I went to school, I finished, enough already. I don't want to keep learning in my work. And other people are kind of in the middle. So I'd like you to think about, again, when you've had some kind of job or volunteer service that involved GAN, and when you had ones that didn't involve GAN, how did you feel? What happened to you when you had it? And how did you feel? What happened to you when you didn't have it? The next one is virya, which has to do with strength and power, physical health. So a lot of people like to have virya in their work. I know of people who work in construction and they say, what I really like about my job is how physical it is. Or I know someone who works with cows who told me the same thing. I really like the physical aspects of my work. So some people really like work that contributes to, where the work itself contributes to their health. Now, we're not talking about where your work makes other people healthy. Like dentists make other people healthy, but doing dentistry doesn't make you healthy. So right now we're talking about what brings you health and strength. And again, some of us really want that as part of our work, and others of us don't. Like we want to be healthy, but we want to do exercise outside of work, for recreation, for our downtime. And other people they don't really care one way or the other. So I'd like you to think about when you've had virya in your work and when you haven't had it. How do you feel or what happens to you when you have it? How do you feel or what happens to you when you don't have it? The next one is Shri. Now Shri means kind of sparkly brilliance. And it has to do with all forms of beauty. Beauty for the eyes, beauty for the ears, maybe beauty for the nose. People who like to work with, say, perfumes or essential oils. It can mean the beauty of nature. It can also mean charismatic leadership. That's different from Aishwarya. Aishwarya, you have a title. You're the project manager, you're the vice president, you're in charge of something. In Shri, maybe you influence people, maybe you're up on stage and you influence people, but you're not like in charge of them. So Shri can mean any of those: visual beauty, auditory beauty, olfactory beauty, beauty of nature, or charismatic leadership. Now some people really like to have this in their work. They want to work in an environment that has some kind of beauty, or they want to work with some kind of beauty. Other people really don't like this. They're just very practical minded. They don't mind if other people make things beautiful, but that's not something that they want to deal with in their work. Then there are other people who are kind of in the middle. So I'd like you to think of when you had any form of Shri in your work, when you have not had it. How did you feel or what happened to you when you had it? How did you feel or what happened to you when you didn't have it? See, that's where all the equipment is. That's where all the equipment is. And if you play with that, you're going to mess up everything for everybody. And they'll be so sad. And then they'll all be mad at you. And then you'll be really sad. And then I'll be really sad that you're sad and that everybody's sad. And then we'll all just be crying all night. So please don't mess with the table. Thank you. Okay, the next one is Yasha. So Yasha means fame. But this is a very special kind of fame. Yasha is a personality in the Bhagavatam that's the child of Kirti and Dharma. So Kirti means to talk about. It's related to the word kirtan. And Dharma means that which is authentic. So when you have Yasha, you have authentic fame. So that's not like charismatic leadership of Shri. That's not just like the famous musician or athlete. It's not that kind of fame. But it's the kind of fame you have if in your work you work with a team that's very encouraging and acknowledging. That's not just work-focused. Or it can be you work with a consistent community that is also giving a lot of praise and acknowledgement and encouragement. So again, there's a lot of people for whom having Yasha is a very essential part of work. And I've met people that if you just say, hey, can you get this done, nothing happens at all. And if you say, hey, can you work with this supportive, encouraging team, everything happens. And then there's other people who don't want yasha as part of their work. When they're working, they just want to focus on getting the work done. They don't like this kind of encouragement attitude in the workplace. They want that out of work. They want to come home to the social environment of their family, their friends. They don't want it in work. And other people are kind of ambivalent. So I'd like you to think about when you had yasha as part of your work, when you didn't have it, what happened to you, how did you feel when you had it, what happened to you, how did you feel when you didn't have it. The last one is vairagya. This is perhaps the strangest way of being rich. People think of it as an anti-prosperity because vairagya means without attachment. But it's also a way of being rich. When we think of vairagya in work, that might mean you have a very flexible schedule. You can do your work whenever you want. It might mean your work involves a lot of travel. It might mean your work allows you to live a very minimalistic lifestyle. Like I met one man who said, what I like about my work is I can ride my bicycle to work. It might mean that you have work that really fosters detachment. I met one man who was a manager in a maximum security prison for the most notorious criminals in America. Like the kind of people, you know, who killed 15 people, like some serial killer who just like really enjoyed killing people, those kind of criminals. So he was managing this prison. And in order to do that, you know, he had to take care of these people. Imagine that. Imagine dealing with some of the most evil people on the planet. And you've got to make sure that they have food and clothing and medical care. So to do that, you'd have to have a lot of detachment. So that's another kind of vairagya in work. Now, a lot of people don't want to have vairagya in their work. They want to have a set schedule. This is when I work, and then my work is finished. They don't want to have a super minimalist lifestyle, right? Or they don't want to do a lot of travel, or they don't want to have that kind of detachment in their work. And other people who are kind of somewhere in the middle. So I'd like you to think of when you've had any kind of vairagya in your work, and when you haven't had it, how did you feel or what happened to you when you had it? How did you feel or what happened to you when you didn't have it? So can each of you look at that list and think about which of the one or two of these might be most important to you in your work? Is everybody able to do that? To look at that and say, whatever's our top two things, if we don't have that in our work, no matter how much money we're making, we're not going to be happy. And if you say, well, I'm just going to make a lot of money at work, and I'm going to get my richness outside of work, but work takes up a lot of our time. And often there isn't a lot of time for hobbies in the evenings and the weekends. So we should try to find some work that gives us the richness that actually enrich us. Another way of looking at our nature is this verse from Krishna, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Chaturvarnamaya Shristam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. This is where Krishna is saying our guna, our qualities, and our karma, our work, should be together. We should do the kind of work that fits our nature. Now, in our career Dharma book, we do not use the Sanskrit names for these four kinds of work. The reason we don't do that is that most people who are familiar with these Sanskrit names, as I'm sure you are, have a lot of misconceptions and prejudices about them. So we prefer to use some English words, and these are not perfect. People sometimes complain, why did you pick that word? But we tried to do our best to pick English words, so we call those the field of artistry, the field of ideas, the field of resources, and the field of government. Now you might wonder, why did Krishna take the hundreds of thousands of ways that you could work and put them into these four categories? Why didn't he just say, hey, whatever work you're doing, do it for me? Which he does. He says, yak karoshi yadagnasi, right? Whatever you're doing, do that for me. But Krishna also takes all the kinds of work and puts it into these four categories. One reason is that All these four categories always exist in human society. A particular job might not exist, right? There weren't any software engineers 200 years ago. Maybe with AI, there won't be any in 100 years. But the four fields always exist. They always exist. And people with the four temperaments for these fields also always exist. But the main reason is that the Dharma of each of these fields is different. And they are mutually exclusive. What's Dharma in one field becomes adharma in another field, which is why everyone can only have the temperament of one field. If you think you have the temperament of more than one field, then either you are confused, which is very common in Kali Yuga, or you're mistaking one of the types of prosperity for a field, or you're in one field that likes to help another field. So there are people in ideas that especially want to help government, or people in artistry who especially want to help resources, like that. So we're going to go through these again very briefly. When I teach these in depth, I can spend 2 hours just explaining the nature of the fields, and another 2 hours explaining the nature of the people who should work in the fields. So here we're just going to spend a few minutes on each. So first we're going to look at the field of artistry. The field of artistry provides all the pleasures in human society. Metaphorically speaking, you could think of the work of this field as providing all the salt and spices in the food of life. Without the work of this field, metaphorically, life would be just like plain rice. They also provide all the functionality of society. It's because of the work in this field that there's a projector, that there's lights, that there's a building. These are the jobs that make everything work. They're the supportive jobs, and they also provide all of the beauty in society. If you look at your paper, you can see some list of careers that are in artistry. Does everyone see some careers? What are some of those careers? Could someone tell me what some of those careers are from their paper? So that's the nature of the field of artistry. By the way, the field of artistry in the universal body of God is on the Lord's lotus feet. And it's stated in the Bhagavatam that Krishna is very pleased with the service attitude of this field and gives the workers in this field special protection. Let's look at the mentality of the people who should work in this field. So here, also looking at your sheet, you see we have for this field beginning inclination and dharmic expertise. Does everyone see that? Yes? So the main special quality of this field, of the temperament of the people who should do this type of work, is wanting to please customers and clients. The pleasure of the customer or the client is their pleasure. They want to paint a picture that hangs in someone else's house. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the 3rd canto that this service attitude of the people who belong in the field of artistry is so close to bhakti. The mood of bhakti is my happiness comes from pleasing Krishna, from pleasing the devotees. And this is the kind of mood that the people with an artistry temperament have. The Bhagavatam also describes that these people are very honest. Like if you take your car in to be repaired, and if you take it to an artistry person with dharmic expertise, they'll tell you what's wrong with your car, and they won't tell you something that's not true. They'll only tell you what's actually wrong with your car, and they'll give you an honest price for how to fix it. They're also very naturally satisfied people. Prabhupada talks about this a lot, people with the temperament to work in the field of artistry, if they have a comfortable house, good food, a loving partner in life, if they're able to do their work to a high level of quality and are treated with dignity and respect, they're happy. They're not ambitious people. Going on to the field of ideas. The field of ideas provides all the wisdom and guidance for society. Can you see on your paper what are some of the careers in the field of ideas? What are some of those careers? Now, usually these people transmit wisdom. Usually they transmit wisdom through language or mathematics, but sometimes, occasionally, through the arts. Like you might have a photojournalist. You might have a photojournalist who goes to the Ukraine and take pictures of the war in order to give people wisdom. So sometimes it's like that. So the temperament of the people who should work in the field of ideas, their temperament, what distinguishes them from the other fields, what distinguishes them is their sense of detachment. They feel like they're not really part of life. Metaphorically speaking, they're like a sports commentator who's watching the game but not playing it. So they feel they're kind of separate. They're sort of observers of life. Like people in artistry, they're honest. But unlike people in artistry, they don't want to please customers and clients. And so they may be honest about things that upset people. The artistry person will be honest about what's wrong with your car. The ideas person will be honest about what's wrong with your ego or what's wrong with your lifestyle. That may hurt. You don't want to hear what's wrong with your ego. You don't want to hear what's wrong with your lifestyle. And so they're willing to displease customers and clients in order to be straightforward with the truth. Also, like artistry people, these people are satisfied. They're not ambitious. But unlike artistry people, they're not so interested in the comforts of life. They're satisfied with their mental and intellectual. Going on to the field of resources. The field of resources provides all the resources. They provide all the raw materials for food, clothing, construction, like wood, brick, metal. They provide all the raw materials for medicines. They may be working directly with natural resources or working with money. They're bringing wealth to the world. Can you look at your sheet? What are some of the occupations in the field of resources? Can you tell me what some of those are? So, of course, Krishna likes to work in this field. The mentality of the people who should work in this field, the Bhagavatam says they're always thirsty. But what they're thirsty for is not so much their own wealth. They're thirsty to increase the wealth of the world. My youngest son works in this field, and he says, Mata, when he was like in his early 20s, he said, Mata, my life is already successful because I have generated more wealth for society than you and Father invested in raising me. Now, in order to generate wealth for society, they have to have a mood of sustainable, regenerative wealth. And in order for wealth to be sustainable and regenerative, there has to be a profit. You have to save some seeds from the harvest to plant next year. You can't just give everything away. People who don't have a resources mentality often misunderstand this mentality as greediness, but it's not. These people understand that in order to have my business or my farm producing year after year after year after year, I have to invest back into it. I can't just give everything away. So what distinguishes this field from the other fields is this ability to recognize the flow of resources in society, to be able to make money or provide food when things are going up, when things are going down, when there's a lot of rain, when there's not enough rain, when the markets are good, when the markets are bad. Because we have to eat and have clothing and houses and medicine all the time. So that is their temperament. Then we go to the field, we should say one more thing about their temperament. So these people are expansive. They're not satisfied people. They're always thirsty. They're expansive. A satisfied person is never going to feed the world, folks. They're also, Prabhupada explains in the 18th chapter Bhagavad Gita, they're diplomatic. They're not straightforward. Just like no one expects advertising to be honest. Do you expect advertising to be honest? No. You want the person who repairs your bicycle or your car to be honest. You want your doctor to be honest, but you don't expect the businessman to be honest. Yes? You don't expect the advertising to be honest. Okay, next we go to the field of government. So the field of government provides law, order, fairness, equity, protection, and facilities beyond what we can provide for ourselves. They take taxes and fees, and then they turn around and give that money back in things like roads and hospitals and schools and parks and facility and protection from criminals and protection from outside threats. Now, this field of government applies not only to political government, it also applies to what we call NGOs, non-government organizations that do the work of government. Instead of collecting taxes, they're collecting charity. And then usually they collect, like government collects taxes from you and gives the money back to you. NGOs might collect charity from you and give the money to you. But they're doing the same kind of thing. They're providing roads, they're providing schools, hospitals, water, and so forth, and protection. Srila Prabhupada says that work in this field can also be a landlord, where their kingdom is like their their apartment building is like their kingdom. They're like a very small kingdom. And they're providing parking, they're providing electricity, they're providing water, they're providing everything you need like a little kingdom, and they're collecting rent. So the temperament of the people who should work in this field is that of a protector and a carer. They're kind of like, I didn't ask you about the careers, did I? Can you look at the careers, please, in the field of government? So the temperament of the people who should work in this field, they feel like they're the big parents of society. They're providing everyone's needs and protecting everyone. You could say they're the arms of society, but not just arms like weapons, but also arms like care. They make sure everyone's cared for, everyone's treated with fairness, with justice, with dignity. They're very interested in morals and ethics and protection. Now Krishna says twice in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter and in the 18th chapter, don't do somebody else's work. Do the work that matches your temperament. Even if you think you can do other work better. There's 3 ways of being expert in work: knowledge, skills, and your dharma. It is very possible to be expert in the knowledge and skills of something that's not your dharma, through a variety of circumstances. Maybe your parents said you have to get a degree in that, but it's not your dharma. And it's possible to not be expert in the knowledge and skills that is your dharma, because no one ever trained you. So Krishna says, even if you're expert in the knowledge and skills of something, if it's not your dharma, don't go down that road. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. And he uses an interesting word. He uses this word, bhayavaha. He says if you do someone else's work, then your work becomes a vehicle of fear. Like if you tried to ride a motorcycle in the sky or a car in the water, it would become a vehicle of fear for you and for everyone else on the road. Now, how would it affect you? Paradharma means someone else's work. Swadharma is your own work. When we do our own work, we naturally feel enthused and enlivened and energized because we're being the best version of ourselves. When I do someone else's work, I'm going to feel depleted. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to be looking at my watch. When is the workday going to be over? When I do my own work, my mind is easily my friend. When I do someone else's work, I'm always going to be battling with my mind. When I do my own work, I'm going to be getting so much satisfaction from the work itself that I'm naturally going to be detached from the fruits of my work, which I can easily offer to Krishna. When I'm doing someone else's work, because I'm not getting satisfaction from the work itself, my only happiness, and we can't live without happiness, you know. We're anandamaya bhyasat, we're pleasure seeking. Therefore, if I can't get happiness from the work itself, then I'm going to try to get happiness from the results of that work. And I'm not going to be able to give that to Krishna. Now let's look at principle 2. You also have a paper with the list of principles and an explanation of the principles. So we've just looked at principle 1. What we've looked at so far is principle 1, that we should connect our nature with our livelihood. That whatever is our temperament, that's the kind of work we should do. And we looked at that in terms of the 6 prosperity types and the 4 fields of work. Now we're going to look at the second principle, advancing through life while nourishing our nature. Basically, this principle means that I have to get trained in my Dharma. Prabhupada writes about this in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, that whatever our temperament is, we're not going to be able to do our work nicely unless we're trained in our Dharma. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to start Varnashram colleges in every center of the Hare Krishna movement. And that's primarily to train people in their Dharma. You can go to so many institutions to get trained in information and skills about work, but who's training us in the Dharma? Now, the Shastra talks about expertise in work, but we also look at inclination in work. When the Shastra describes the temperaments of the 4 fields, it describes it like this. You all know who this guy is? Yeah, right? Okay, but even Mr. Bolt, he had to start off like this. So when we're looking at someone to see what field do they belong in, we're not looking necessarily for this, we're looking for this. And you see that we have a line there, right, about inclination? Yes? With each of the fields, we have a line, what's beginning inclination and what's dharmic expertise. Everybody see that? Right? Now, how are you going to tell what someone's inclination is? Well, one hint is that our nature cannot be repressed. Krishna says our nature cannot be repressed. It's going to come out somehow or other. It's actually the duty of the parents and the teachers to notice a young person's inclinations. Empirical research says that this is obvious by age 13. And then to train them in the Dharma information and skills. Now, because our nature can't be repressed, if we don't have a positive dharmic outlet for it, it may come out in the wrong way. That's what Krishna says to Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, you're a soldier, you're going to fight. Your choice is to fight for me or to fight for your own ego. You don't have a choice of not fighting. So we have a story in our book about one young man. When he was in school, he was always getting in trouble for doing this. Hey, stop that. Hey, stop that. Go see the principal. And one day when he was 10, one of his teachers said, hey, stay after class. And he's like, Oh boy, I'm in trouble again. His teacher said, "You're not in trouble. I have a present for you." And what do you think his teacher gave him? He became a world famous drummer, actually. There's also a very famous scientist called John Audubon. Have any of you heard of John Audubon? He was a famous naturalist, studied biology, and he studied all the different species of birds. He was very well known for having drawings of every species. When he was in school, he got in trouble for always looking out the window. Can any of you guess what maybe I got in trouble for from the time I was 3 years old in school? Asking too many questions. Well, yes, that's true. But something else. What? Yeah, I still get in trouble for that one. What did I get in trouble for? What do you think? Correcting the teachers, yes. I was always trying to teach the teachers how to teach. So from the time I was 3 years old, I would say, "Do you see her over there? She should be playing like this." And the teachers complained to my parents. They said, "Your daughter's really a problem. She's not just playing with the other kids, but she's always trying to tell us how to teach." And so I was told the whole time I was growing up, stop teaching, by my teachers, especially my mother, stop teaching. And so I thought that was something wrong with me. Huh? If you had asked me when I was a teenager, what are you good at? Would I have said teaching? Would I have said teaching? No, I thought it was a problem I had to get rid of. Now, thankfully, my parents and my teachers did encourage me in public speaking, in research, and in study, but not in teaching. And it wasn't until I was 24 and I met my god sister, Jyotirmayi, that she first trained me in the Dharma of teaching, and then the information and skills. And after a couple weeks, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a teacher. And guess what I do often as an adult? I teach teachers how to teach. It's one of the main things that I've done as an adult. But because nobody recognized that as my nature, and they didn't train me how to teach. Right? Another example, I was once giving a class, and there were a bunch of little kids, aged like 3, 4, and 5, kind of running around in the class. And I noticed that one of the kids, one little girl, maybe 3, 4 years old, that she was directing all the other kids. She was telling them what to do, where to go, right? So at the end of the class, I said, whose child is this? And the parents come up all embarrassed. I said, your child is a natural leader. And they said, yeah, we're always telling her not to be so bossy. And then I said, okay, what do you guys do? So it turned out that both the mother and the father were big leaders in the government of that country, and also had big leadership positions in the Hare Krishna movement. But somehow, when they saw leadership in their 3-year-old, they thought it was a problem. And they were telling her, don't be so bossy. So often what's our nature comes out in childhood as something that people criticize us for. But somehow it's going to come out because it can't be repressed. Now, ideally in life, our nature would be recognized when we're young and trained when we're young. Prabhupada says Gurukul is meant for training in the higher values of life, along with specific training for a livelihood. Then, when we're in the prime of life, we should work according to our nature. Once we hit middle age, we should retire and we can advise others. And at the very end of life, we should be having nothing to do with any of this and just preparing for death. Now we're going to go beyond to finding real satisfaction and purpose in our work. See, a lot of people are just interested in the first thing, connecting our nature with our livelihood, getting training. But we need to do more than that if we want to be really happy. So now we're going to look at principle 3, extending our prosperity to others. This has to do with charity. Krishna says in the 18th chapter that even if you're a great soul, dana, yajna, and tapa should be done by everyone. Krishna seems to really like sharing. He seems not to like selfishness. Srila Prabhupada says that how much money we get in this life is dependent on how much charity we gave in our previous lives. Because Krishna likes sharing. What's interesting is that there's empirical research that if you give more charity in this life, you'll be richer. The people who give more charity even in this life tend to be wealthier. Again, Krishna seems to really like sharing. And all of us get more satisfaction from giving, don't we? So big festivals like Diwali and Christmas are all about giving gifts to others. Can you imagine if the stores said, you know, instead of spending all this money on giving gifts, why don't you spend it on yourself and that you can get what you really like? Would that work? Isn't that interesting? We get more pleasure from giving to others. Now, giving is not just money. We can also share our prosperity types. So this is really about volunteer work. Whatever I'm enjoying in my work, I can also share that with others as a volunteer. If I'm gaining knowledge in my work, I can voluntarily give knowledge. Like that. All right. Then our work should be ethical and meaningful work of value. In order for us to be happy in work, our work needs to be honest. Our work needs to be honest. That means we should represent our goods or services accurately and charge a fair price. If we're hiring people, we should pay them a fair wage. And then our work should actually be adding value to society. We shouldn't be producing something useless, and we certainly shouldn't be producing something harmful. We shouldn't be working in like the tobacco or alcohol industry or pornography or something like that. It's very hard to be satisfied with our work if our work is not meaningful. All human beings want to do things that's actually meaningful and has value. Now we can go beyond ordinary meaning and ordinary value, which we call in our book the cycle of frustration. You do your Dharma, you get your wealth, you use it to become happy, but eventually if it's just on the material level, you become frustrated. And then you say, well, I don't know if I want to work anymore, or maybe I'll do something else, or whatever. But eventually we're going to go back because our Dharma can't be repressed, and we're going to go right back in this cycle. If we want to find ultimate satisfaction, we have to work with love. Love for ourselves, love for our work, love for the people or animals that we serve, and ultimately love for? There you go. Now when we do that, we're going to bring real value to our work beyond the ordinary. Even if we're not like distributing prasadam or distributing books at work. Like Srila Prabhupada told my father in 1974, my father said, I'm coming to the temple to see my daughter and son-in-law, not to see Krishna. Is that okay? And Prabhupada was sitting like this, and he said, yes. He said, they are loving Krishna. And I was thinking, I don't know if I love Krishna. Prabhupada said, chanting and dancing are symptoms of loving Krishna. He said, so they are loving Krishna, and you are loving them. So two things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. So if you're doing your work out of love for Krishna, and you act in such a way that people will love you, then your work is going to go beyond whatever external value you're doing. Now, this may surprise you, but there's another way in which our work could be unethical or ethical. Remember I said that Krishna says this verse twice in the Bhagavad Gita? Shreyan Swadharma Viguna Paradhamat Stanustitat. He said it in chapter 3. We already looked at that for ourselves. Right? Remember that? What happens to ourselves? When I do my work, I'm energized. My mind's my friend. I'm working with detachment. When I do someone else's work, I'm depleted. I'm always battling my mind, and I'm very attached to the fruits of my work. But it's not just personal. When I do someone else's work, I mess up society because I'm going to be bringing my Dharma to a place where it doesn't belong. Now again, this is something that I can teach for 2 hours, just this one part. We have 2 chapters about this in the book, where we give a lot of historical examples. Okay, I'm going to go through this quickly, but I hope you get some idea. This is something we don't have on the paper. This is crossing resources and government. If somebody with a mentality of resources works in government, they're going to try to make a profit out of government. We have in America privately run prisons. Do they want the prisoners to be reformed? No, they want repeat customers. When somebody with a government mentality works in resources, they're too generous. They're not profit motivated. They're thinking more about social justice. And so usually the business fails. This is what happened in the former Soviet Union. When the government took over the farms, everybody starved. There was famine. Crossing government and ideas, crossing government and ideas. When people with a temperament of ideas do government work, they're too merciful. And they'll say, oh, are you a rapist and a murderer? But that's okay, I can forgive you. Or they'll take too long to make decisions because they want to do research for 20 years. And the decision needs to be made right now. Would you trust a history book written by somebody in government? Would you? No. Now that harm spreads throughout society because ideas is giving all the guidance and the wisdom for society. And if you can't trust what the people who are working in ideas are doing, society is left without guidance. When people with a government mentality work in ideas, they're more into hierarchy. And they may stop the free flow of knowledge and wisdom that is essential for the field of ideas. Crossing ideas and resources. I find this particularly interesting. So people with an ideas temperament will think it's unethical to make money and it's unethical to make a profit. They actually feel very hesitant to make a profit on anything. And they'll have a hard time being expansive and feeding the world. People with a mentality of resources working in ideas, they'll think that doing theoretical research is unethical. They'll think unless something has some practical financial use, it's unethical to put time and money and human hours into doing that work. They may also profitize knowledge. Think of a pharmaceutical company that does research on pharmaceuticals. Can you trust that? Can you trust that? Yes? No? I'm too tired, it's the end of the day, and I don't know what you're talking about? Yes? And this is also this danger that people will no longer trust what's coming out of the field of ideas. Crossing government and artistry. Government and artistry. So one of the main qualifications of government is they're energized by crisis. You can think about firefighters. Everyone runs out of the fire, but the firefighters run in. But artistry people, you know, they like security. They want a nice, comfortable home, and that's what they're looking for. So we had in America, we had a shooting in a school, and some of the security guards, they didn't go in to save the children. And when they asked them, why didn't you go in? And they said, well, people were shooting in there. So that's what happens when artistry-minded people work in government. What happens when government-minded people work in artistry? Well, do you want people who are energized by crisis doing your electrical wiring? Right? Also, these are the people fighting for justice and fairness. And when they work in artistry, they feel very constrained. They may become insubordinate, they may procrastinate, or they may become vigilantes. Crossing ideas and artistry. Ideas and artistry. When people with an artistry temperament work in ideas, remember artistry brings all the pleasures to society. They may sensualize knowledge. They may present spirituality and philosophy as just bringing sensual pleasures to society, which is fine in artistry and not fine in ideas, where you have to have objective, detached truth. And again, people then will lose faith in the field of ideas. Also, you notice at the top of your paper that arrow for the concrete abstract? So artistry is the most concrete field, and ideas is the most abstract. An artistry temperament person working in ideas, they may just like, what's all this theoretical and abstract research? They may neglect it. When people with an ideas mentality work in artistry, they may be too detached. They may dry up the field. I know one ideas person who works as an electrician, and he says, I think I am in the wrong work, because the other electricians, they make the wires beautiful in the box, and I think that's just stupid. Or an ideas person working in artistry may get pulled into the sensual nature of that field, may lose their objectivity, and may become like a mad scientist who ends up wanting to blow up the world. Crossing resources and artistry. When somebody with a resources temperament does work in artistry, they're going to want to be expansive and profit motive. They're going to say, why are you making pottery on a wheel? Let's make it in a factory. Why are you making clothes on a hand loom? Let's make it in a factory. Then it's going to make it difficult for the artisans to compete. Yes? Instead of having media that's inspiring, they're going to just throw sex and violence in it to make money. Fast food, fast fashion. They're going to destroy the craft. When people with an artistry mentality work in resources, they're too satisfied. They're not expansive. Again, they're not going to feed the world. They're happy if they can feed their family. Also, they don't have the sustainable, regenerative mood of resources, and therefore they may have businesses that cause pollution to the environment. Now we're going to go one step further to progress to Dharmic mastery. Here we have perhaps one of the most difficult principles to understand, but something that Srila Prabhupada emphasizes a lot in his books, and that is to cherish our prosperity and field of work. My friends, this goes beyond just doing honest work of value. We're looking at our whole area. How are my ethics touching all of society? This is the mood that whatever I'm enjoying is coming from Bhumi Devi, is coming from Lakshmi Devi, and I should honor it as the Lord's prasad. Cherishing our source of prosperity. If we don't do that, it's like cutting off the head of the goose who laid the golden egg, or cutting off the tree branch that's giving us fruit. Our first source of prosperity is our own body and mind. We should do work that allows us to have good work-life balance and a healthy life. I was talking to one man, he says, at my work they expect me to work from 9 in the morning until midnight. That's not cherishing your physical health. Or work that doesn't cherish your mental health. And we should cherish the physical and mental health of the people we work with. We don't want to burn them out physically or burn them out emotionally. And our work should cherish the environment, the land, the sky, and the water. If we pollute those, then we're polluting our own source of wealth. We can also look individually at the types of prosperity we enjoy and to cherish these, to enjoy them as prasadam, not bhoga. Let's look at some simple examples. Like if I'm enjoying Aishvarya, if I'm enjoying being a positional leader, then I don't just want to dominate everybody. I want to make other people feel smart. I want to make other people feel empowered. If I'm enjoying Gyan, I want to remember that I don't know everything. Other people are expert in other areas and I can be wrong. If I'm enjoying Vairagya, I don't want to be so detached that I don't care about anybody. Right? I also want to keep humility and sacrificing for others. If I'm enjoying Yasha, I don't want people to praise me even when I've made a mistake. Right? I want to keep that integrity. If I'm enjoying Shri, I don't want to cover poor quality with the veneer of beauty. If I'm enjoying Virya, I want to get health and strength in a legitimate way. Now here's something that Srila Prabhupada talks about a lot. The integrity and the Dharma of the four fields. You can think of our work as like a rock in a pond that creates ripples throughout the whole pond. If I don't honor the particular Dharma of my field, That affects the entire field, not just my work. Here you can look at the column, what willing to sacrifice for. You see that one? Did you all see that one in your paper? What are they willing to sacrifice for? To cherish the field of ideas, one has to be willing to sacrifice for objective truth. That means I may speak truth to power. I may be put in jail. I may be tortured. It means speaking truth to religious leaders who may persecute me and torture me. Does that happen? Does that happen? When people speak truth to religious leaders or political leaders, do they sometimes get tortured, imprisoned, killed? Willing to quit my job if my boss wants me to distort data. In government, willing to sacrifice one's very life, one's right arm, one's eyes, one's life to protect others. In resources, willing to sacrifice in order to keep that cycle sustainable and regenerative, to make sure that people are going to eat not only today but tomorrow. And in artistry, willing to sacrifice to make sure that my work has quality and integrity, even if someone pushes me to make more money or work faster. Like I saw a sign in a restaurant once, it said, "We make slow food. If you want fast food, go down the street." So this is understanding that my whole field has a Dharma for me to protect. Our next principle in Dharmic mastery is having celebrations of the sacred in our life and work. This is the principle of sadhana and yajna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3:16, "Evam pravaritam chakram." Prabhupada commenting on this says a chakra is moving. In the natural world, the plants and animals take from nature and give back to nature. But we have to do that intentionally. Prabhupada would say we have to pay our electric bill to the sun. To understand that everything I'm getting is gotten from Krishna, is gotten from Lakshmi Devi. And therefore I need to take time off from my work and off from my life to connect with the Lord. If I'm going to work for Krishna, I have to know Krishna. And we say it doesn't matter what religion you're in, what tradition you're in, take some time every day to connect. Have some celebration of the sacred in your life. And eventually that should pervade your life so that every act becomes connection. Every act becomes a ceremony of connection with Krishna. Everything that we do. Our last individual principle is that we should work above what my co-author, Dr. Ruchira Datta, and I call the shades of ego. So why do we call them that? Well, tamas is like a dark curtain over a window. You can't see anything. Rajas is like a sheer curtain or like a bathroom window. You can see some shapes and some light, but nothing clearly. Sattva is like a clear window, but being above the shades is like being outside. So I think it might be a good idea. To introduce you to these guys, Mr. Sattva, Mr. Rajas, and Mr. Tamas, so you can recognize when they're coming. What do you think? Would you like to meet them? Yeah? All right. Okay. So I want you to imagine that truth is like a river. People who are in tamas, they pollute and foul the river of life. This is something so you can remember it. One word that begins with a P, one word that begins with an F. They pollute and foul the river of life. I'm Thomas. You know, I'll do something good if it's easy. Yeah? I mean, I'll eat a vegetarian burger if they serve it at McDonald's for the same price. Don't expect me to drive all the way to Govinda's and pay more. Come on, you know? Like, I'm the kind of person, whatever's on the TV, if my remote control's over there, I'm just going to watch whatever's next, yeah? Like, I'm not ambitious, and I'm not one of those, woo, spiritual people, you know? I take care of my family, you know, and don't insult them or I'll insult you back. Okay, thinking about life as a river, people in Rajas, they're going to push and force the river of life. I am Rajas. I am a builder of society. I have built the museums, the schools, the parks. Do you see all of my opulence? I have worked hard for it. I have sacrificed, and I will tell you all the sacrifices and austerity that I have done to earn all of this. I am not lazy, and I am not a woo spiritual person. And someday, my name will be in the history books, and my statue will be in the park. Then we have sattva. So if life is a river, sattva plunges into the river of life and goes with the flow. I am sattva. I'm very spiritual. I'm very forgiving. I'm very compassionate because it makes me feel so good inside. I am not ambitious and I am not lazy. I see everyone equally, unlike those materialistic people. And I have a shelf full of crystals and angels. When we get above the shades of ego, if life is a river, we're playing and frolicking in the river of life. Srila Prabhupada says we're part of Krishna. That means we're a partner with Krishna. We're a co-creator with him. We see, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, our life as an adventure. And we don't always know how it's going to turn out, but life is full of play and excitement. One time somebody asked me, how can we make Krishna consciousness fun? I said, Krishna's an eternal teenager. He's always having fun. And if you're Krishna conscious, you'll be having fun. I said, if you're not having fun, I don't know who you're conscious of, but it's not Krishna. These shades of ego are like the dark side of our work. We might think we have to pull energy from them to do our work, but they pollute us. And therefore, right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Nistrigunya Bhavarjuna, get above these shades. Let's look at an example of the shades of ego in charity. So charity in Tamagun. You give the wrong thing to the wrong person. You give alcohol to the alcoholic. Or you give the right thing to the right person, but without respect. Here, Swami, take your charity and leave me alone. Or you give the right thing to the right person, but at the wrong time. You give them charity when they're eating, when they're on the toilet. Then Rajas, you give the right thing to the right person at the right time with respect, but you're calculating. If I give this, what will I get back? I'm giving this because my guru, my boss told me to give it, and then maybe I'll get a raise, or maybe I'll get some praise or some blessings, right? Or why did I give that much charity? In sattva, you give the right thing to the right person at the right time with respect because it makes you feel so happy inside. Above the shades, you give the right thing to the right person at the right time with respect to make Krishna happy. Yes? All right, let's look at the shades in work. Working in tamas, stubborn, lazy, deceitful, insulting, morose, procrastinating. In rajas, attached, greedy, envious. When things go well, yay! When things go poorly, whoa. In sattva, detached, steady. Getting above the shades in work. This is in Bhagavad Gita 3:30. 3 things to do, 3 things not to do. What do we not do? We don't exploit our prosperity types. We don't use our prosperity in an exploitive way. We don't think we're the owner. I'm not the owner of this body. I'm not the owner of this mind. I'm not the owner of this talent. I'm not the owner of my wealth. Nothing. And I let go of being feverish, jwara, which can mean either you're lazy or like, oh, I'm feverish, I can't get out of bed. Or it can mean I'm feverish, I'm running around without any purpose. 3 things to do. Dedicate my work to the ultimate source. Dedicate every moment, Prabhupada says, to Krishna. Remember, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not this nature of this life. I am always a soul. Jivera Swaupaya Krishnara Nityadas. Everything I do should be service to him and work according to our nature. All right, The last third of the book, we look at the whole system. How could we have a whole society based on these principles? So our 8th principle is maintaining societal balance, cooperation between the fields, and competition within the fields. The fields cooperate with each other. Ideas, trains, and guides. Government provides licensing and accreditation or venues or facilitation for various endeavors. Resources provides the money and the raw materials, and artistry assists everyone. Now, it would be great if everybody did their right work and cherished their field, but that doesn't always happen. So the fields also provide a check and balance for each other. Ideas holds government to the rule of law. Government regulates others through law. Resources by where they spend their money. Artistry by their numbers, because they're the greatest number, and also through what they do or do not decide to translate into arts. Now, although the fields should not compete with each other, ideas should never compete with resources, there should be competition within the fields. Prabhupada says competition gives life. Maybe we should always want to do our best for its own sake, but you know, when there's a competitor, it energizes us, it pushes us to kind of explore the limits of our potential. Now, this should be friendly competition, like a jewelry or garment district that benefits both the businesses and the customers. We're not trying to erase our competition or be predatory. It should be friendly, sportsmanlike competition. Competition in artistry brings us inventions and masterpieces. Competition in resources gives us higher quality of resources and better means of distribution. Competition in government, just like here in India, you have different types of government in different states, right? And there's different types of government in different countries. And people get to choose, right? Some countries have a government where they have to have a big wall to keep everybody in, because everybody wants to leave. Other countries have such a nice government, they have a wall to keep everybody out. Right? So by competition in government, people can choose what government is suitable for them. Competition in ideas helps to keep the purity in science, in medicine, in religion, in philosophy, and helps keep all of those disciplines responsive to time, place, and circumstance. Our last general principle is all-inclusive, sustainable prosperity. Now, this is the one that in the Hare Krishna movement, when people think about Varnashram, they usually just think about this one. They don't think about the other 8. Not long ago, the economists of the world made a deliberate decision to separate economic theory from natural resources and land. They said, we're no longer going to have our ideas of a vibrant economy connected to the earth. And they started saying that economic prosperity could be measured only in economic growth. What's wrong with this? Anybody? What's wrong with saying economic prosperity equals economic growth? Anybody? That's going to be a result. But what's wrong with it in and of itself? If you say economic prosperity means unlimited growth, we're just going to grow, what's wrong with that? It's not sustainable. We have a finite planet. You cannot have infinite growth on a finite planet. And then we're going to have the problem you talked about, but we're going to have forcing. You're going to try to force the earth by pouring artificial fertilizers and pesticides. You're going to try to force the animals by filling them up with antibiotics and hormones. You're going to try to force distribution so people can eat mangoes all year. By the way, Hiranyakashipu did this. He forced the trees and the plants to bear fruits all year. And you're going to try to force people to work from 9 in the morning until midnight, to work in the wrong place, to work beyond their capacity. You're going to end up with a huge wealth disparity. where some people have $250 billion and other people can't afford a plate of khichdi. So our last principle is to have all-inclusive sustainable prosperity, an economic system connected to the land, to natural resources, so that every human being on the planet can have their proper work, their proper prosperity type, and what they need, as Krishna says, for living happily and attaining liberation. So we looked at identifying our ideal career field and prosperity type, learning the secrets of making our work deeply meaningful, progressing to Dharmic mastery, and the whole system for peace and prosperity according to these 9 principles. So I hope you will excuse me. It is 9 o'clock at night. I have to get all the way back. It's going to be at least probably an hour, hour and a half. And tomorrow I'm traveling to Mysore, so I'm flying to Bangalore and then driving the 3 to 4 hours to Mysore. It's going to be all-day travel. So I need to have this very strange need that I have tonight called sleep. So I'm not going to be able to answer questions. I wish I could. What I found with this topic is that there's unlimited questions. I found that no matter how many hours I spend teaching it, that people never stop asking questions. My conclusion is that there's a great hunger for this knowledge. Again, if you're interested in getting on our mailing list, you can go to careerdharma.net. We also have an online course there at Career Dharma, and we have a list of coaches that can train people to find out what is their nature. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that everyone can become perfect by doing their own work. Now we have some of my books here. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, as this is the last place that I'm going to in Pune, so some of the books are sold out. Okay, so what we have here is we have the Krishna Meditations book, which how you can find Krishna in every part of your life, in your breath, in the light on your phone, in the time on your watch, in the birds and the trees. We have this illustrated guide to the Bhagavad Gita. It was written to be a study guide for children ages 5 to 18, but I find a lot of adults also like it as a simple study guide, how to memorize the most important verses in the Bhagavad Gita. We have chapter summaries, questions and answers, and a teaching guide. And what else do we have here? We have Raghunath Das Goswami's Splendid Instructions to the Mind, with over 120 illustrations, commentary Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And we have a little book on how to chant without offense. And we have our novel, Essence Seekers, which is nice for adults and teenagers, makes a good gift for your non-devotee friends, how to go from materialistic life to Krishna Prema. So we are unfortunately all out of the Career Dharma book, which is what this class was about, but it is available online. Anything good in this presentation is from Srila Prabhupada or Acharyas in the Shastra. Any mistakes here are mine. Don't even blame my co-author. They're completely my responsibility. So for my mistakes, please either correct them or ignore them. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. I just take a quick moment to thank Mother for coming all the way.
It was really all the way. It took over 2 hours.
Actually, you took a detour. You went further inside and then come over here. So back in 2021, when we started our online classes during COVID time, the very first series we had done was Ramayana. And that whole Ramayana series was sound. The Ramayana series was largely inspired by Mother's notes. She had a wonderful notes. I've been regularly, Hare Krishna. We have been regularly referring to Hare Krishna. We've been regularly referring to Mother's notes. And just 2 weeks ago, I got this book, Carrier Dharma. I was in Radha Desh when actually Mother was doing the presentation seminar, but I had a short stay. I got to know that this is a very important topic. Even Brahmacharis were really inspired, got a lot of clarity on it. So I got a book for myself to read it. And therefore we thought it would be nice if Mother can speak on this topic. I'll also get an introduction to it. I saw the book. It looked like really academic book. So I was a little bit,
Intimidated.
Yeah,
the book has a thud factor.
Yeah. So I thought better I hear to the lecture first, then I'll have the courage to open it like that. It was a great, great, insightful session, and really want to thank Mataji or Mother coming all the way. This is probably a third or the fourth talk of the day, and one thing we all can take an inspiration, despite she's growing up. As Papa writes in one of the purpose, as devotees grow up in age, they become more enthusiastic in devotional service. We have a living example in the form of Mother Urmila. We also seek her blessings that we continue to serve in the Prabhupada mission nicely, inspired by wonderful examples like devotees like Mother Urmila. And of course, great inspiration for all the mothers, for all the Prabhus and everyone in the society. Let's thank Mother by once loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And let's pray to the Lordship for her good health, and let she keep visiting Pune and Anjawadi every year and give us an association. So we got the introduction to Karya Dharma. Next time we'll have the chapter 1 of Karya Dharma, or whatever way is the next session like that. So thank you very much. Mother, would you be available to sign?
Yeah, I'm going to stay to sign books, and then I'm going to go. So
Yeah,
if you want to book, like, hurry up, because
So can we just quickly
I
line
need
up
to go.
those who would like to catch a book?
Yes,
You
thank you.
can take a book, and Mother will sign for you. Particularly those kids' books, those who are starting the kids' program, they'll find it very handy to refer to the books, like Bhagavad Gita, etc.